All right, welcome to Raising Funds for World Domination, Day 90. Orthoplex 64 sends wave. How's it going? So updates for today. There's nothing new here. Today I continued work on the current video. I filmed a little bit, not as much as I'd like. I think there's one more scene I'd maybe like to film, and then I'll gonna add like a voiceover at the end, and then hopefully I'll be done by the end of the week. And otherwise, we're gonna continue work on the block mining simulation game. So last night, I made a bit of progress on I've been trying to fix some corner cases in the merging function, in the layer merging functions, when you merge down multi-column characters. And there's some weird edge cases with things overlapping with the layers below. So there's a bug that we'll probably be able to illustrate here. There we go. So the background of this is not updating. So I tried to figure out what's the trigger for that last night. So it kind of seems like it's happening. It only happens when I'm at like the limit. So for the top layer, when it's merging down, there's no changed region. It's only the layer below. But then when it does the merge, it's getting it wrong. Oh yeah, and I also I noticed you also get the same you get the same bug if I maximize and minimize or and restore. So if I can figure out a test case for that, then I'll probably be able to debug it. Are you building a game? Yes, I am. Hey Robert, have you ever tried getting into using a tiling window manager? I haven't. I pretty much just leave everything as the default. I did play around with changing the UI up a bit at one point, but it just it's too much extra work to maintain. And I guess the other issue is like when you don't use the default thing on Linux, you run into more of the bug cases. So I wonder if that has anything to do with change, the fact that it's maybe not associated with a changed region. So this takes all of the change regions, so that shouldn't be an issue. And unfortunately, to cover these edge cases, my code's getting more complicated. See if that changes anything. Does land to your people yield uranium and ruthenium? Probably. But which specific land do you mean? Hi, how goes the coding? Pretty good, I guess. If you do it every single day, you do manage to make progress after a while. Grinding away at it. Where we build the stronghold? Probably. I mean, there's concentrations of every element everywhere. I googled a bit. I think up on Axel Heiberg, I don't think there's I don't think they've actually done a lot of mineral research up there. There's probably just not a lot of data on it. Not lots of samples taken, so there might be a hidden valley of gold. All right, interesting. That did not make the bug go away. I guess it's probably most fruitful if I can just come up with another test case that makes it appear. How big of a greenhouse aquaponic system do we need? That's a good question. There's lots of details that somebody needs to figure out. Need to get like a team of YouTubers to do some video essays on like breaking down how much volume of rock would you have to excavate in order to build a sizable a cavern that's large enough to grow like significant crops in the Arctic. It's lots of engineering questions to be solved. Aussie dead? Yeah, I saw that as a headline briefly. That's tragic. He apparently played a concert very recently. Got to play a final concert weeks before he passed. It's a good legacy to have. Sometimes I think he's not serious about world domination. This is all some kind of joke. And yet he's still working on World Dom text game for 90 days. Which does seem pretty serious. Well, that's good to hear. That you only have to work on something for 90 days and people think you're serious. I was prepared to go for even more days. Okay, that test case failed, which is what I wanted and expected. Because I think that is basically the bug case. So let's go with the AI overview. That's pretty good. Array is not toString. Let's try that. Alright, that's what I expected. Array was that, but saw that. So that, I think, is the bug case. So now we can open up our trusty debugger. Rob, any reason you use IntelliJ? What are the alternatives? I actually don't even know. Well, I guess when I started using, the reason I started using IntelliJ was because I hadn't used an IDE for years, and I was like, I should probably give it the times and get into this AI stuff, learn an IDE. So I just Googled a bit and researched a bit. I think actually chat kept recommending IntelliJ. And I forget what the alternatives were, but IntelliJ seemed to be like the main one that people use. Generally, I only use it when I'm debugging. There's a few cases. I guess sometimes if if I've written like a ton of code and I just want to use the IDE to like just show me where all the compile errors are. But if it's one error at a time, and it's often easier just to I guess while I'm talking to chat, my pattern is I usually write code, then I'll let it compile, and while it's compiling, I just talk to chat. And I think I also need to figure out. I need to figure out how to get like incremental compiling to work in the IDE, because even when I work in the IDE, I still have to compile it to see all the errors. It doesn't tell me immediately. All right. Let's figure out why this is not working. Nice. Bingle Bangle sends $10. Thank you for the answer. Talking about AI, have you seen the demos for ChatGPT's new agent feature? It's pretty scary. I haven't specifically watched any demo videos, but I am kind of aware of what those like agent features can do, like where it does the kind of like in ChatGPT. I've used ChatGPT's image generation probably more than the code generation, but I've interacted with it, and I'll ask it to like give it like a vague instruction, and it's pretty impressive when it'll do like that chain of thought reasoning. And it takes what I say and it actually breaks it down to like basically build its own prompt for the image generation, which is often pretty impressive. But yeah, I can see how from that you can just have like a high level instruction, and then it could come up with like a bunch of commands, and like if you just give it root access to your computer, who knows what it could do. I think some of that stuff it's pretty scary, but it's at the point where I'd be kind of scared to use it on my computer, or like I'd want to manage the access that it has, because not necessarily because it'll like, I think it'll take over, but like if you were to run it on a computer with access to your files and stuff like that, it could just decide like, oh, I need to rummage through all these files and then process them and submit them back to ChatGPT, and then like train on it or something. Giving it root access to a system is probably not a good idea without some serious safeguards. Yeah, and I mean it's not just like about like doing anything like super intelligent. If you give root access to any program, it can just like steal all your files, and that's almost seems like the whole thing propelling all AI forward, is it just like steals everything. It's kind of amazing how like normalized it's become to just like scrape and steal websites and stuff. Like I think my blog, which I invested incredible amounts of work into, this was like over a year ago. I remember looking at some like random AI tool or something, and there was a thing to see where the data came from, and there was some of my blog posts, I guess it ingested, but like I never gave it consent or copyright. or any of that stuff. Is that IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate? That's Community Edition. Or maybe we're asking about the agent feature. I'm not sure. But yeah, thank you for the $10. All right, so so we're on the top layer. That's false. Top layer is null, I think. Yeah. All right, second layer. All right, that makes sense. Nishant S says, "How are you doing, dude? Not too bad. Making progress on the block mining game. I'm going to teach myself how to JUnit, second half of August. JUnit, I guess I don't know much about the intricacies of JUnit. It's just kind of like a thing I know that I need to import if I want to have easy test cases. I don't think there's too much to it, at least the basics. The new agent opens a browser window on the website and interacts with the GUI. And what a person does, you can tell to log into YouTube was given her credentials and post a comment. It came out yesterday. Oh, it came out yesterday. Wow. Very spooky. Yeah, that kind of thing is almost like it doesn't surprise me that exists, that someone has that. But what actually does kind of surprise me a bit is that they would release that feature and advertise like a use case like that and demonstrate it so perfectly, because what it almost demonstrates is like it's not going to be possible to detect bots. Like that is so obviously like an adversarial use case. It's almost like they're trying to warn the public, like, you know, an unsophisticated member of the public can build a disinformation bot using that feature, then like what can a nation state do? The agent just sounds like a generic MCP server. I guess I don't know much about the model context protocol. So I think I can see why this would not work. I think I maybe just implement a so the idea behind what I want is for the color codes, if the current color codes is empty, just use the one in the layer below. But it looks like what I was doing was just picking if it's empty, pick the existing merge down one, which would only know about the layer above it, not below it. So what I can do is just I can default to this. And then if equals 0, then we'll do another for loop. So start the layer below. And then all right, I think that works, but I don't like that solution because now my code was simple, but now it's becoming crazy. So by default, new color codes is the current layer's color codes. But if that's empty, start the layer below, keep going down until you find a layer with color codes. And then use those. I might even have that in here too. Yeah, I might need to implement that there, but for now let's test that. AI deleted a company's database. I'm certain AI ain't replacing anything. It's I mean, it's like exactly the phrase, like knowing enough to be dangerous. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's so like it's definitely good enough that we can't, like, if we could ignore it, life would be so much easier if we could just get over the AI stuff and then be like, it's just not, it's not good enough, and then we can ignore it. But it keeps coming up in conversation, but because it's so powerful that you can't ignore it. So we're going to be forced to endlessly interact with AIs and complain about them. I guess the I mean, I think I keep going back to thinking about like anyone in this chat here, like anyone who's here is very aware of programming and what technology is capable of and stuff. So it's not quite as impressive to us. But if you think about random people and what the applications they can build, even though they're full of bugs and stuff like that, it seems like magic. So it's kind of understandable why the public thinks like, oh, programming is done for, because like from their perspective, like it already is. It's so much better than them, and it allows like there are like 100, 1,000, 10,000 times more people, more human beings alive who don't know how to program than ones that do. And so you have like a ratio of like 10,000 people, 10,000 non-programmers to every one programmer. And those 10,000 are like, wow, this is changing the world. These are super intelligent beings. But then that one programmer is like, it's not that good. But nobody listens to them because they're 1 in 10,000. The AI's company kept pretending nothing happened, and even fake data. Nice. That's awesome. Mostly because of capitalism. Not because it is useful, but capitalism it must march on. Bridger Murphy says hello. AI is also a privacy nightmare. Soon OLS will have Copilot like AI. You can essentially bypass all encryption. I logged into my email. I noticed there's a Copilot button in my Microsoft email account. And like, I didn't ask that to be there. So is it reading all my emails now? I've seen that in Gmail too. There's a button that shows up. It's like, do you want to click this button and the AI will like respond to stuff for you? But I don't want that. Oh, look at that. The bug is not fixed. Okay, let's see if does that fix the bug, the unit test. It did not. Interesting. Maybe I also need that down here. Actually, no, that would be in the test case. Oh, that made the previous test fail. By AB VX. I have no comments on stock trading tips. I wish you the best on your recommendation. I hope you make $10 billion. De-risk drug company for ulcerative colitis. Yeah, I don't have the knowledge to trade on that stuff. So this here is supposed to be inheriting the colors from this, but it's not. Actually, maybe my test is wrong. So it's the final. So it needs to check all the layers below. I hate how complicated this is going to get. It has to check all the layers below. And then if none of those, see, maybe I'll refactor this after. Make it correct and then make it elegant. So check all the layers below. Look at that, it's still got the bug. Okay, so the old test case is fixed. Oh, this might be fixable. 1243. All right, that should be true. So that means the flags are not getting properly propagated, which would explain why it's not updating. This was so simple, but now it is so complicated. I hope I run out of bugs soon. Otherwise, this code is going to get so crazy. Nice. Look at that. The bug has been fixed. Excellent. Look at that. You know, that's such a simple change, but it actually it improves the usability of this, I think, so much more. To instead of seeing a square, it's just seeing like happy face, and without that little background. Now, does the test case work? Excellent. The test case passes. All right, that change was, the whole reason I did that was because I wanted There was another change I wanted to do somewhere. Actually, let's try a thing right now. So this I think has bugs that I fixed in the past, but have been reintroduced because of inconsistent character widths. Oh, there's that bug. Yes. So that's an issue. Oh yeah, that's in screen layer now. Let's see, what if that'll break everything? What's this game do? It is a game that you play in the Linux terminal where you simulate the process of mining blocks of iron ore and other minerals. Alright, that works. Wasn't sure if that swapping that order would break everything. Look at that. Some ore should grow in mind, potentially trapping the player. Like a Chinese finger trap. The only way to get out would be to calm the ore by reducing mining frequency. Maybe. That sounds like a complicated, a very contrived game mechanic. I guess you could have like cave-ins or something. I gotta get the performance better before I do any of these features, because it's just like, it's so slow. I think some small things, like going to the happy face character from the square and then getting the background layer to merge correctly goes a long way to improving the UI. And any incremental change for terminal-based application makes it more understandable. Now, I'm not sure why that is suddenly broken. You can make a Flatbird game with Bitcoin mining in background. I could. And I could also put some microtransactions in for increased monetization. You have your own proprietary license? Yep. That's how I plan to get rich. It's got to be proprietary to make money. Make a flapping bird game? Nah, I think I'll focus on this for now. Okay. Oh, that's why. Because I did not initialize the merged final screen layer function, or layer. How does the world generation work? So I have my own noise generator, and I use procedural terrain generation. So for a given XY, I'll show that in a sec. Excellent. No crashes. So if you check multi-dimensional noise generator, this is just a pure, this is a noise generator that generates multi-octave noise, smooth noise. So there's, you specify an X and a Y, like X, Y, Z position in the world, and then it generates an X, Y, Z coordinate, and then it generates a noise intensity value that is locally correlated with other randomly generated noise, things from the same noise function. And so that generates smooth noise, and that is referenced in the chunk initializer thread state. And the entirety, so here it's pulling the noise, get block data add coordinate, and this here is the entirety of all the terrain generation. So it just so this creates a blank sphere at the origin. All of the caves in the game are generated with these 3 lines of code. Below ground is just it's like a threshold. So the more high value the noise is, it goes up to iron, and then every region between. This is not very good, but it's simple to like just get something quick. The ground level terrain is here, and above ground is here, where it's just wood. VV says, hey, I want to build a CLI-based project management tool. Any tips or tools? CLI-based project management tool. Depends how complicated you want it to be. I would suggest just go simple. The whole point of CLI applications is that they're simple. Like they're in any modern application, like for applications that have to be used by end users, like 60 or 70% of the code is developing the user interface. one of the big benefits of building command line applications is you don't have to building the UI is like you just call a function to get some input. I would say for the first iteration, you could just go with like, yeah, I mean, it's hard to give a good answer without knowing what it's going to do. But if it could just be like a simple thing, let me think. There's like I can't remember the name of the function, but it's just like a read input or something. You can let me just see. Bash get. Oh yeah, read. So there's the simplest shell script, and I just run that, and then it'll say enter a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that's my application. So that's like this application I built this application and its user interface in less than 10 seconds. So it takes input from a user, it does a thing with it. So that's, I'd say, your major benefit to command line applications. And then from there, you can just like build it up to be more complicated. Maybe managing sprints, assigning roles. Yeah, I guess it depends. If you're like, if the application's going to interact with other things, like it's going to talk to other APIs and stuff. I guess it depends how complicated it's bound to get. I would say if you're doing something, I would say if whatever you're doing is going to be less than like, if it can be maybe like less than 100 lines of bash scripts, of like just bash statements, like you said use curl to hit an API or something like that. The lowest fidelity thing is like, it's just write it in bash and use, curl commands or whatever. So less than 100 lines. If your application ends up being over 100 lines of bash, I'd say you're making a mistake in going down that road. If it's greater than 100 lines, start thinking about rewriting it, the whole thing in Python or parts of it in Python. So what I've done for some things is like, I'm prototyping a process. I have to glue together a bunch of things and talk some stuff, but then I have something that it really needs like a more sophisticated programming language, like something that can parse, and it's just like string manipulations and stuff. What I would do is maybe write a Python script and then just call the Python script from bash and use that to glue stuff together. So then if it's, so less than 100 lines, bash. If it's 100 lines to 1,000 lines, Python and or bash. And if it's greater than 1,000 lines, I would really strongly think about writing it in not Python or bash. So I would probably do it in Java. A lot of people like Rust. Go is, I think, another good alternative. But yeah, depending on how high fidelity it is, that would determine maybe what language you write it in. The other thing is, if you want to do like, if you want to write like really sophisticated, if you want it to be really fancy UI stuff, search for n curses, which I guess is the API is in C, but I think there's I'm not sure about like Rust. Well, given the nature of Rust, there's probably some Rust bindings to talk to n curses APIs, but you'd have to Google that. But yeah, n curses is one of the APIs for like doing command line interfaces in a more portable way. Although, having said that, I don't use n curses in my application. There's also not curses, which is I've not tried it, but it's looks impressive. Your license is interesting. I just read it. Yeah, I think it's good. You got to make money. I think there's people who put like MIT license on stuff or something, and then like a company will just take it and then be like, oh, thanks. Let me just make profit off of this. And then they'll get mad. They're like, no, yeah, open source, but not like that. But the thing is, if you put no restrictions on it, people can do whatever they want. I think there's a couple of Amazon Web Services things I think that are like that. It started as an open source project, and then AWS is just like, okay, we'll just use this as a starting point and make money on it. What's the tax code for our new nation? I think we had settled on land tax. I forget. I think the land tax is pretty good. Or maybe like volume tax, because I guess it's underground and caves and stuff. So okay, what did I just do? So we fixed a bug. Metabolism tax? How would that work? I guess depending on how many joules of energy you burn. Can you give Can you give we your identity and what you work, or who is your teacher, and which of the university you graduated? Can you give we for your identity, and what do you work, or who is your teacher, and which of the university are you graduated? My identity. My name is Robert. Graduated from Waterloo. And my teacher, I don't have a teacher. Is this a real video? It's always the same thumbnail. I guess it does always look the same. It's because I'm always coding. I thought about doing I do have my phone set up. I can do IRL live streams, but I did a few of them, but they don't really seem useful. It's not yep, it's real. It's not AI. This is generated from a Robert diffusion model. Yeah, now that we have a data set now. I guess now there's now that we're on day 90. Eventually we'll get to a point where we could just train a machine learning model on the data set of the previous 100 days, and then the future will just be it'll just be a large language model regurgitating what I said. Can you tell me, what are you preparing for? I have a video on my channel called My Plans for World Domination, and I made that video specifically to answer the question people ask. All right, let's move on with the next thing, which was all right, so every time we set the cursor position, we can also do what we'll do is we'll just print spaces. Okay, so that should basically, like, this will be inefficient, but it'll pre-clear the background every time a character gets printed. What project are you working on in GitHub? Is that a color script? So the project is a terminal-based video game where you simulate the process of mining blocks, which I'll show you momentarily if it'll compile. 435. For color scripts, there is that place in the code I was showing was setting some color codes. It's in Java. It's not a script. All right. UI works. Interestingly, it's not even that much slower. So this should be much more robust. Okay. Let's see what that does in IntelliJ. Can anyone join your repository? No, I don't. I'm not accepting code contributions at this point. I think I'll probably just do it. Like trying to include other people, it's kind of a hassle. And if the project is successful enough, then I'd probably just find some people to pay to get them to work on it. I think anything that would be free, I probably wouldn't want to merge in, and then there's copyright issues. And I'm just lost with Java. Is it supposed to be easier to learn? I think Java's on the simpler side of languages. All right, that does not fix the issue. I'm our JavaScript. I hate TypeScript. Too many errors. Yeah, JavaScript is a fair amount different than Java. Although I'm not familiar with JavaScript, or I'm sorry, not familiar with TypeScript. But if I got back into JavaScript, I probably would use TypeScript. I've only used it a couple times, but it's kind of, I got into JavaScript before TypeScript was really a thing. Give you some likes. I'm a geek as well. I support this. Excellent. Thank you very much. Are you single stepping now? What is that? This is what the running the game looks like in IntelliJ. And there's rendering bugs because so I think this happens. You know what, if I bet this will fix that bug, but it'll make it slow. TypeScript has too many errors. with Next.js. Drives me crazy. Yeah, I'm not. I got out of web development before Next.js was really a thing. There's just too much nonsense and like the npm package system, and it's just too much time wasted trying to fix like nonsense bugs. It honestly feels like web development is going backwards, and like all the frameworks and stuff. And like I learned React, but now there's from what I understand, like it was even now, I guess it's approaching 4 years ago that the last web project that I worked on, that was my introduction to Next.js. And so I learned a bit of it, but I haven't used any of it. All right, that's super slow now. Use VS Code for my IDE. I have yet to use VS Code myself. It's kind of annoying that these new languages don't have specs. Like Rust is a case of the implementation is the spec. Oh wow, I didn't even given how much people praise Rust, I would have figured it'd be a bit more well defined than that. Man, this is excruciatingly slow now. I guess this shows me that there's a lot more optimization that has to be done. Rust is a more organized C++. I can believe that. C++ is pretty disorganized and evolved. "13 of y'all here like his video. He does cool stuff. Thank you for the kind words." Okay, I'll just have to close that because that's way too slow. Your name referenced in Elder Scrolls. Reference to Elder Scrolls. No, it's just my name. Yeah, the name Robert Elder. I mean, it's not that uncommon of a name. When I was young, I thought it was a special name, but when I got older, I realized there's a lot of people who have the same name. Let's see what that does. It's special, it's referenced. Is on the game, is on the biggest games out there. Yeah, I can see how some people would make the reference, but this actually looks all right. All right, I might be able to add that as a flag then. Three months going at it consistently is an insane feat. I wished I had that type of discipline. Isn't there like a bunch of like coding challenges and stuff people do all the time? There's like a 100 days of code, or I find it is good for getting stuff done. Lead code, yeah, there's probably some of that stuff. I haven't, I've never done lead code before, but I find the biggest benefit of doing this is the fact that it's in my mind consistently. So I'm like last night, I really wanted to fix that bug, but I was like, it's late, I want to just go to bed. So I went to bed, but and today I was just like, oh man, I really want to just fix that. So sometimes when I get started, I don't feel like getting started, but then once I work on it for a while, I get into the groove and I'm like, it'll be late, and I'll think, oh, I gotta go to bed, but don't waste your time on lead code. It does kind of seem like something that would be fun to do if I had infinite time. Alright, there's some glitches in that, but that's otherwise pretty good. Okay, so the error I wanted to fix through all this nonsense was this. So we'll see if this works with tmux now. Leak code drains my soul. Only do it for interview prep. Yeah, that's what I've kind of understand. People say once they lose their job, they just start grinding leak code, as they say. Look at that, it is still broken. That is tragic. Let's see. It's good if you're applying for a FANG. Don't let these small don't let these small companies trick you into doing that. I actually don't even really know. I don't know how leak code even works. It's just kind of like you get some points or something. There's some gamification, if I remember correctly. How do you deal with the debugging phenomenon, where each new attribute breaks everything, and fixing each bug just causes it to snowball? The main way I dealt with that, which I guess you can, if you look at the last 10 days of what I did, and look at like the last 10 or 15 commits or so, is I just spent a lot of time like looking at the code, thinking, how do I reduce the code footprint? So I looked at it and I thought about it, and I had basically like 3 or 4 different functions that were doing basically a similar thing, and I spent a lot of time to kind of untangle them. And I had some that were using like relative coordinates and absolute coordinates, and I reduced those functions to be identical to each other, and then I merged them. And so I had like 4 different functions that I merged into one. And so as a part of that temporary process, I abandoned things like efficiency. So I made it kind of slow. But I went for like simplicity and correctness. And then once I merged that, now I can kind of expand out again. So there's a complementary relationship with, if you want your code to be fast and efficient, it's going to end up getting more complicated. But you can kind of like, you can expand the code, make it efficient, and then you can like consolidate it down, make certain things simpler, but less efficient. And eventually that, if you go back and forth, you kind of end up restructuring the application. So eventually you can take like certain things get pushed out into like more generalized classes and stuff. No premature optimizations. I think you can do premature optimizations sometimes if you want, but it just means you may have to throw them away. Man, this is a tough one. Still don't work. You guys actually getting interviews? Tough out there. I'm actually not looking, but I am curious to see here any reports anyone has. Interesting, if I go this way. Oh no, we just still screw up. Huh. But it almost seems random. It's bad. Ghost jobs. A recruiter finally hit me back after 2 months apologizing. Yeah, it's the worst. And also, like, sometimes the recruiters will just ghost you, or even like the recruiter will get laid off. That's pretty annoying. He was the replacement? Huh. I forget the exact nature of this bug. Well, at least the screen version works. Any ethical hackers here? There's probably at least a couple. I don't do any like real hacking. I know enough about like security to kind of protect myself. There's a lot of stuff to know these days. There's so many different angles to cybersecurity. And the worst part is we keep writing garbage software. White hat. Yeah, I'm sure there's a couple at least. In a year or two, AI will be in full force. It's already in full force. The amount of spam and like I haven't really hosted anything public in a while, but last time I looked at any kind of weblogs, they're just filled with like there's always been random, you know, even 10 years ago you launch a server and there's like random stuff that tries to attack it. You see like weird, you know, pen testing stuff. Searching for a PHP myadmin and stuff, but now the amount of like crazy, like double escaped things and like PHP requests with encoded shell in the URL and SQL statements, SQL injections with bash, encoded bash in them, and cross-site scripting vulnerabilities and PHP variables, and it's just really, really crazy. Game Dev Chad says, hey, how's it going? People need devs to only run the AI. Yeah, the intersection of AI and dev is going to be pretty crazy. Going very well. Excellent. Hopefully you made $1 billion in the stock market. Claude is nice. It's better coding than others. That's what I've heard a bunch of people say. But I also heard, I saw one person say that Claude was awful. Redman, that's pretty random. I think you said before you're talking about something to do with Ghostbusters. But I don't know, that joke only flies one time. Let's see, I don't know. I'm not sure what to work on next. My goal is to maybe get like just some kind of slow compatibility mode. So it just like runs. We're adding some MS-DOS music to it. For now, probably there'll be no music. If I can just get the UI working good, that'll be good enough. Let's see, I just thought of something. Still broken. Works okay in console version. Yeah, I don't know if whether to just move on from this case or not. My hope is just like to get some, like to kind of fix this, figure out a heuristic to fix this issue once and for all, because I'm sure there'll be at least some terminal. Like this way, if I get a bug report where someone says, hey, it's all glitched, and they don't communicate well, then I can just tell them, like, run it with this compatibility mode, and it should, if it works with that, then, you know, the problem is a known thing. So I'm sure there's some other weird terminal that probably has the same kind of glitch. Would it be compatible with Mac? So you are running Ubuntu. It would probably be like some aspect. I don't think it would work out of the box. Never tried it on Mac, but like most of the application probably would. If you tried to run it, there's probably something that would fail, I think. It's kind of cool looking. Makes me think of you should add like line of sight, shadow fog, like a dwarf fortress. It does have there is like a, well, those question marks and stuff are basically the area loading and initializing. That's one of the things I kind of have to fix. It used to be a bit more like faster to update, but now it kind of like lags, and it lags and doesn't let you move, and then it loads all at once. Let me think. There's a bunch of things I could do. I don't know what I'll have time to start tonight. So I've got two different. Oh wow. Game Dev Chad sends $50. Tendies. I mean, chicken tenders. I haven't had those in a while. That's huge. Thank you very much. We're now at $81 tonight. I don't think I can't remember if I offered or not, but if you want a block type dedication, you've been a significant contributor. So at least I could do is that if you I don't think I have one for you in the game yet, but if you have a favorite chemical with a cast number, I can add a dedication for you if you want. We can even add a new block type. All right, that's not supposed to happen. supposed to be clearing those. By some ABVX. I guess. Like I said before, I hope all the stock advice works out. Any interest in voxelizing this mining game? That would be an inevitable conclusion. I think I'm going to focus still on the pure terminal-based thing. I think the roadmap will be get the UI like working good and fast, and then implement multiplayer. And then once multiplayer works, then I think that would be at a point where some people, even with the almost non-existent game content, some people will be like, hey, this is pretty interesting. Do you utilize any issue trackers for this project? No, I haven't needed to yet. I've got a pretty decent roadmap in my mind. Although in the future, I guess people can file issues on GitHub, and that would be the issue tracker. But nobody really plays the game, so. Some retail squeeze plays. A handful of them run on this month. Nice. Literally just disabled tracking for a site using privacy badger. Like a cookie tracking or like one of those banners, tracking banners, GDPR consent things. So yeah, it'd be nice to fix that case. I had fixed it at one point in the past. Web browser add-on? No. Interesting. I don't really use any of those. I'm getting kind of wary about any kind of plugins or add-ons now. Especially ones that are like, we'll do this thing for you. We like did all this work to write a plugin that helps you, and we give it away for free. The question is like, why are you doing that? Are they like siphoning data off or something? So my situation is when I pass those changes down, I think the issue why those little boxes show up is the rock character. Empirically, it only takes up one space. Like when you measure how wide it is, it takes up one space. So you can print it and then print a space character after it. But that only empirically takes up 2 spaces. So there's like a glitched character that's like half hidden behind it. And then the diffing function, it only prints differences. But because it doesn't calculate any difference there, because there is no difference, it doesn't know that it needs to print another space to overwrite the glitched character. So I think that's the I think that was the core issue there. Firefox has a weird LLM function now. Oh man. We're never going to get away from this garbage. It's going to be in everything. It's in my email now. Yay for LibreWolf. That's a web browser, if I remember correctly. Firefox, but bloat removed. Highly privacy centered. Interesting. It's always good to have versions of applications without all the bloat. So merge changes. Thinking about if there's a way to just always merge in those. If I can just set it to always, like force an update at that position with another flag or something. But this is what I have here, and that doesn't seem to work. It's a question about should I fix this or should I move on? It would just look so much better if it worked. that game I helped with that didn't get published. We took an offer from a publisher to buy the name, domain, social media for another game that wanted to use the name. Oh, that's good. Yeah, at least you got something out of it. I'm sure it probably wasn't an amazing payout, but the worst feeling is when you have projects that just kind of, you build them and they're out there and not much comes of it. But to have some kind of a conclusion, it's nice. What are features you're planning on adding to the game? I would like to add a ton of features to the game. First, I want to get it working correctly. Fix issues with the UI. I want to make it relatively fast, and then once it's working efficiently, the next major, I think once the UI is pretty stable, is multiplayer support. Because the whole, like, most of the actual, like, what you consider game content, I think is going to depend heavily on the existing, like the event model and stuff is going to totally depend on if I add a new event or a new item or action or something like that, when I write that, it's going to depend on the event model. So if I build an extensive single player game and try to convert that to multiplayer, it's going to be a nightmare. The reason why this AI slop is so pervasive is because big tech realized they could pump their stock prices with AI buzzwords. Now they're desperately looking for a return on their huge investments. Yeah, I think that sums it up fairly well. They offered 10K, and we countered with 20, and they took it. Wow, that's not bad. Honestly, they yeah. So that was for the domain name. Yeah, really just for getting for the IP. I mean, I don't know much about the game industry, but from an outsider looking in, that sounds like a very satisfactory result. Yeah, I mean I think that still puts you like in top like 1% for people who try to like pursue their dream of game stuff, because so much of that, there's so many projects out there that people just put so much pour their heart and soul into, they just don't go anywhere. And to get that for the IP, I guess I don't know if you if there was a ton of code or anything that you gave away, but then again with AI, I wonder if like assigning value to copyright over code, it's going to become like anachronistic. Already a multi-billion-dollar industry. Even if the bubble suddenly pops, the tools they've already invented aren't going to disappear. Even if local models. If they accepted your counter offer, you lowballed it. It's possible. I don't know. I don't take my advice on valuations, but without knowing how much input work went into it to get to buy the social media accounts and name, maybe like a little bit of artwork or concept art or something. It sounds like a decent outcome. And yet you can still, and also you can, I mean, something that's also really valuable is the fact that you successfully built a piece of game IP and then sold the game IP. So you and your, business ventures as a whole can demonstrate that you can actually produce revenue. Enormous loss overall. Now just an embarrassing loss minus 20K. Okay, that's too bad. But at least you, I mean, I think a big part of business is learning to go through the full cycle of like, step 1, create an idea. Step 2, build the idea. And step 3 is like commercially derive some revenue from it. And a lot of people never even get to step 3. They just like lose a massive amount of money. They create nothing of value. And then there's no actual like revenue, even at a loss. So I guess you've done all the 1, 2, 3. You can reflect on next time you do it. You can make a small profit instead of an enormous loss. I guess if you still own the game, like most of the investment is probably in writing all the code and developing that. But if you have all that stuff, like if a lot of the logic and internal stuff in the game is still there, maybe you can, just like reskin it and then sell something out of that. That's hard to see. Let's see, it doesn't make sense why. I added this, which should mean it always updates. guess if you I don't know, because it depends how much time you want to invest in trying to extract some value out of what you've created. I'm not sure what your ownership is of the product with your partner, but maybe you can you could do your own game using the same code, copy and paste. Even if only a partial ownership, you can. I guess if it's if it's also like, if it's bound to be a dead end project, if you believe in it, I have no idea what like it might be total crap code. You could just buy him out. Maybe you could take some of that 20K and buy him out. If it's possible to extract revenue from the existing game, I guess it might be a bit of a gamble. I have no idea. But if it's a total sunk cost, like you could buy, if both of you believe that you will never extract any money from that like, you know, stuff you built together, you could buy him out for $1, and then at least he gets $1 instead of 0. This is unbelievably slow. I'm gonna have to look at what I'm doing. That's one of the next things to look at, is to optimize this. All right, I guess I'll probably have to call it a night. I'm not in total loss. We individually have relationships with publishers, and I have all the console dev kits in those relationships. As far as anything else, my partner overvalues his work by 3x. Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess it's not my industry that I know about, but I mean, if you're even able to get 20K from the IP from the name and all that stuff you had, I think that's a pretty nice deal. But anyway, I guess I'll leave it there for tonight, and we'll be back tomorrow night for day 91. And thank you very much for the very generous super chat. Thanks.